Story 1. When I was 16, I became homeless because my father got hooked on drugs. I had to move from Texas to New Mexico, and then my grandmother passed away. With no one left for me to stay with, I ended up on the streets. I met my girlfriend when I was 16 and she was 15. I remember going to her house and crying on the front porch because I felt hopeless about life. She was the only positive thing in my life. She showed me love and empathy that I had never received before. Eventually, I got on my feet, finished school, and went to college with her being my motivator and support. I would have never gone to college if it weren't for her. We have been married for 7 years and together for 13 years. We have a 2-year-old and a baby boy on the way. I also became a therapist working with children and teenagers because I understand what it is like to be a struggling, hopeless teenager. Story 2. She showed me empathy and cuddled me in bed as the big spoon to show her support and comfort me. Story 3. I received a call in the middle of the night from my mother, letting me know my stepfather passed from cancer. After the call, I cried and she did not really do or say anything. She never once asked me how I was doing after that. The same exact thing happened when my grandmother passed. She was cold and heartless. Needless to say, she is now my ex. Story 4. I am not a man, but I have had a few men cry in front of me. I cried with them, hugged them, gave them space if they asked, and hoped they would want to talk about it afterward. If not, I did not pressure them. Anyone who thinks less of you if you cry did not think very highly of you to begin with. Story 5. We were in public discussing some heavy topics from my past. I teared up and had trouble talking, but she just held my hand and assured me it was okay. Fast forward a couple of years and we are married now. Since day one, she has never used anything I shared against me and never tells her closest friends or family things about me without checking with me first. We check in with each other regularly to make sure we are on the same team. That is what real relationships are. Your partner supports you and you support them. No games, no toxic standards. Story 6. A very bad relationship. She was unpleasant about it. My current relationship, which is wonderful, she is very kind. If you get the first reaction, crying because you are sad about something or as a reaction to a movie, song, or art while you are dating, go ahead and get out. Actually, regardless of gender. Story 7. She asked what was wrong and wanted to help. I am a veteran who has seen combat, had been drinking, and was watching a war movie. It just hit me in that spot, and I started crying about the needless deaths that war brings. I told her I needed to cry about it, and she was absolutely okay with it. She just said, "Well, I am here if you need me." Story 8. She comforted me, then used it against me at every possible moment from that point on. We are no longer together. Story 9. I am a woman, married for 26 years. My husband has cried a few times. I comfort him and try to help. I love him and hate seeing him in pain, but I would never do anything to add to that pain. Any woman who is not fully supportive when you cry is not worth your time. Story 10. I'm honored that a man would feel I am a safe enough person to cry in front of. I ask what they need, whether they want advice or just a place to be upset. One man I dated was very stoic like myself, so when he broke down during a serious discussion, I knew it was something significant. I remember full-body racking sobs, tears, and a look of despair I had never seen before. All I could do in that moment was hold him while he cried. Story 11. The first time my husband cried in front of me was the first time he had cried in almost 20 years, so it came from his soul. All the years of army service and ice road trucking had hardened him from his feelings. It took many hours of unraveling his emotions from childhood to reach that point. When the dam broke, he cried for 10 minutes straight. I just held him, this poor abused little boy who had blocked much of the abuse from his father, who used to beat him into unconsciousness while his mother was at work. He once told me he would stand at the window and watch his father drive into the driveway, and he could tell by the way he handled the gate how his evening would be. Imagine that kind of fear. All I can tell you is to look at your parents' upbringing to understand what kind of people they are. My husband's parents had a deeply troubled upbringing and no tools to help combat that. My mother had a terrible childhood filled with alcoholism and abuse, but was taken out of the home as a child and raised by neighbors and the church. She learned enough to ensure her children would not be raised that way. My husband's parents never received that lesson. He grew up very alone and very abused. So when he started crying, all the years of feeling alone as a child came to the surface. Story 12, my father died. We broke up about a year later, and she said she stopped seeing me as a man when she saw me mourn my father. Good riddance. Story 13. I was telling her about how my dog had died the year before. That night was probably the worst night of my life. She cried with me and we hugged. Story 14. Moments I have felt closest and most deeply connected to my wife have been after tears when she is comforting me. For example, I found out my mother was sick, and my world felt like it was collapsing all around me, and I broke down. If your partner is not fully behind you and supportive in those moments when life gets heavy and real, I cannot describe a bigger red flag. Story 15. When my husband's grandmother died a few years ago, it was the first time I saw him cry loudly and uncontrollably. I had seen him tear up a few times before, but nothing like this. I just held him and let him cry. If anything, it made me love him even more as a person. Story 16. Initially concern and compassion. Months later, it became a point of mockery among her and her friends. Finally, it was used as a weapon against me in an argument. Story 17. I was in a rough mental state and broke down in front of my then girlfriend. She didn't speak much to me afterwards, and eventually it felt like she was just being completely apathetic towards me. I ended the relationship. I had an even worse breakdown in front of my best friend. He did everything. Comforted me, held me close, gave me hugs. He kept checking up on me in the weeks that followed. We had lots of drinks. He made time to hang out even with his very busy schedule. He was just so sweet and caring, the kind of support I expected from my ex. I discovered that I was probably bisexual. I am still very attracted to him, even to this day, but I don't want to ruin anything. He is as straight as his sturdy package. I doubt he knows, and I don't want him to anyway. I am happy with the way things are. Story 18. We were watching A Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood. I was lying between her legs and leaning against her. I have a lot of unresolved daddy issues and didn't realize it was less a biopic about Mr. Rogers and more about the relationship between the journalist and his father. At some point, I began gently crying and she asked if I was okay. I said yes and we kept watching. By the end, I was sobbing considerably. She wrapped her legs and arms around me, held me tight, and cried with me, which made me cry even harder. Story 19. The girlfriend decided to move in with him and make sure he would never be alone again. That was 7 months after they met, now 13 years ago, and they are still together. Story 20. It really depends on the situation. For me, when I broke down in front of her, she was supportive. She saw that I had real emotions and was not just some emotionless man. She actually appreciated that vulnerability. But I did not cry expecting her to fix everything. It was just me being human in the moment. I still carried myself. I still handled what needed to be handled. That is the part that mattered. I showed her I could be vulnerable but also stable, still a man, still a leader. The truth is, some women can handle that kind of emotional moment, and some cannot. The right one does not see it as weakness. She sees it as strength because you are showing up fully. A lot of us men are carrying a lot, and the ones that get it will show up right alongside you. Story 21. What is the problem with a man crying? If she does not understand, it is time to get her help. Story 22. My mom died in the first couple of weeks of us dating. She was just there for me, held me, and said all the things I know my mom would have said to me. That might sound strange, but it was very comforting. My dad passed away almost a year to the day after my mom did, and it was the same thing. We are getting married next year. Story 23. I am pretty sure the tears were a big turn-off for my wife at the time. I got a half-hearted hug and a pat and was told it was okay. We were not intimate for months after that, so to her it was a sign of weakness. I made a promise to never be vulnerable with her again. Story 24. Dad took his own life. The only time she ever saw me cry, she sat up tickling my back for a week, then became my wife. Story 25. She did her best to ensure that she did not think I was weak. I cleaned myself up, made a joke about myself, and fell deeper in love with her. Story 26. We were having a difficult conversation and the tears just fell. I was a mess. She held me tight and cried with me. We have been together 3 years since then, and she still looks for chances for us to cry together. Story 27. It was about 8 months into dating. I was really sick and had to move out of my apartment because of black mold. I stayed with her for a few weeks. I felt like a bum and was struggling in school. It seemed like everything was collapsing, and I cried in front of her one night. We never had sex after that. A few weeks later, after I moved out, she ghosted me before eventually saying that she was no longer attracted to me. Story 28. My partner cried in front of me for the first time when he lost his dog. It was about 3 months in. He was sitting on the floor of his empty apartment, which he was also in the process of moving from when it happened, and was absolutely sobbing. I got on the floor with him, pulled this 275-pound, 6-foot man into my lap, and held him. I cried with him because I am an empathetic crier but did not want to make it about me, so I stayed quiet and just held him until he was done. He said no one had ever done that for him before. It broke my heart to hear. We have been together for a little under 2 years now. Story 29. Empathy. Some people on the internet say that women do not like it, but they are mistaken and unaware of emotional intimacy. Almost everyone who says that is unhappy in their relationships because they cannot be themselves. Story 30. I am going to present the opposite perspective to the positivity expressed here and can honestly say that it has only ever ended badly for me. It has changed the relationship every single time for the worse. In fact, I am in a new relationship now and recently opened up for the first time. I did not cry or anything, just spoke about something that upset me, and it has already been quite different in a negative way. Story 31. When I had to put down my dog and best friend of 15 years, she had never seen me cry before or since. I would say her reaction was extreme shock, but not empathy. To be honest, that is just her. Story 32. My friend is the kind who does not want hugs or anything when he cries, but he will let me wipe his tears with my thumb. Story 33. Relationship forever changed. We broke up shortly after. Situation. One of my best friends shot herself in the head. I felt guilty because she wanted to talk to me a few hours before that, and I said I was too busy. I was playing StarCraft. Story 34. Girlfriend. She showed empathy and gave me a very tender hug. Nothing was said. There was a deep understanding, though. Story 35. We hugged because it was the first time she told me she loved me. We held each other, sharing our tears of being in love. Story 36. I can answer for my boyfriend because he doesn't have Reddit. The first time he cried in front of me was on the phone when I broke up with him. Yes, I know it was kind of an asshole move, but this was when we were 16 or 17, we're both turning 20 soon, and almost all of our communication was through the phone because of the pandemic. I broke up with him for mental health reasons. It was legitimately terrible back then, and while wishing me the best and reminiscing on our relationship, as we had dated for almost a year by that point, he completely broke down. Honestly, in that moment, I regretted breaking up with him because I didn't realize how much he actually loved me until then. We got back together a few weeks later when I was finally ready to explain all my mental health issues and how I needed some time to battle them alone. However, the first time he cried in front of me in real life was during our first semester of college, a year later. He was facing really bad family situations, working strange hours, and couldn't keep up with school. I got mad at him because he didn't submit a lot of assignments, and that's when he left the room for a while. When I went to find him, he cried, and that's when I realized truly how much he was struggling. Honestly, real men do cry and show their emotions. Story 37. She laughed at me. She said men do not cry. She said we were over after 10 years and 2 children. I got custody. She owes $50,000 in support. She is on her 5th boyfriend now. She left us for her first boyfriend. My first impression of her was that she was unfaithful. She was with another man when we got involved. My mistake. I have 2 beautiful daughters now. God loves me. Story 38. My wife is old school and believes gender roles developed naturally. I don't think she will appreciate me not being the strong provider she expects me to be. I haven't cried in front of her yet, and I will try to avoid it at all costs. Story 39. My boyfriend cried in front of me for the first time on a call. I can't fully remember what happened, but I think he sounded upset or something, so I was checking on him to make sure he was okay. He started crying because he was so happy that I was checking on him and cared about him so much. I just sat there awkwardly since I didn't really know what to do. He was bawling and sobbing, and I had never seen a guy cry like that before. It was really sweet that he was crying because of that. Story 40. She held me, comforted me, and petted my hair. I am usually very stoic and rarely outwardly display any emotions I am actually feeling, especially negative ones. I could tell she was extremely shocked by what was happening, but she did what she did anyway, which was kind. We ended up breaking up several months later, but it was for other reasons. There was never any indication that this affected her view of me, either positively or negatively, which I also appreciated. Story 41. She comforted and affirmed me. I told her I was embarrassed to cry in front of a woman, but she told me she would not judge me and treated that side of me with care ever since. Story 42. Not a man, but I have only seen my husband cry once. It was after being together for 14 years, and it was when he heard our daughter's first cry after being born. He sobbed for 20 minutes straight, and it was the most amazing thing. I often wondered if he had an emotional side, but seeing that made me realize that he is going to be an amazing dad. I loved that he was overwhelmed with happy tears as our baby girl entered the world. Story 43. I was so overwhelmed with everything that I had no idea what would happen next, and it all just affected me. My girlfriend, now my wife, embraced me and cried with me because she felt really bad for me. Story 44. I had a cat who loved me more than anyone has the right to be loved. He would meet me at the door every day when I got home, cry for 10 minutes when I left, and sleep on my pillow with me. When he cuddled, it was the perfect spot on my chest that gave me comfort. I loved that cat deeply. He got unexpectedly sick and went from very normal to lethargic and very wrong in a 48-hour span. I took him to the veterinarian, and they told me the only way to save him was a veterinary hospital 3 hours away. My girlfriend drove me the whole way there as I was losing it. When we got there, the veterinarian told me it would cost $10,000 to possibly find out what was wrong and fix him, or I could put him down. I didn't have the money and made a hard decision that absolutely broke me. My girlfriend held me and made sure I got through the next few hours okay, and is very much the reason I was able to look back on it later and be okay. I have never felt so loved or had so much respect for someone until that ordeal. It still hurts some days, but she was amazing, and I love her for it. Story 45. I have cried a handful of times in front of women. Reactions ranged from laughter to hugs. It is like a box of chocolates, you never know what you are going to get. Story 46. I was told by my girlfriend that it is okay to cry, and after I did, she called me weak. I have never cried in front of a woman again. Women can be untrustworthy. Story 47. After 30 years in several relationships with women, and being a man forever struggling with depression, I have come to realize that in a relationship, there is only enough moisture for one of the following two options. Tears for the man's eyes or moisture for the woman. Choose one. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.